and worldwide. So Hare Krishna and all glories to Srila Prabhupada. We'll begin by chanting Jai Radha Madhava, which obviously most probably only I'll be chanting, and most of you're all on mute, so you can do it seated wherever you are at your homes. And then we'll continue on with the discussion from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is describing the beautiful pastime of Lord Chaitanya cleaning the Gundicha temple before the day of the Rath Yatra. Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Labha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada 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 Srila Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jai Shri Hari Sankirtan ki Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Anant Koti Vaishnav Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai Jai Shri Gaura Mahaprabhu ki Jai Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashala Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahiyam Te Swapadantikam Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shanyavade Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivashadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, recently, just this week, this past week, I was talking to someone and considering the world situation today, especially in terms of the pandemic, it seems that we are facing a lot of challenges. And still, although these challenges are kind of new in the sense we are not accustomed to having such a challenge on a daily basis. Still, there's such resilience that the worldwide community of human society is exemplifying. And so there was discussion about the plan of God and how it unfolds and so on and so forth. But during that discussion, there was an interesting quote that was mentioned. And the quote is that God's plan is always more beautiful than our desire. And maybe some people could accuse us that this is our of, let's say, painkiller or a way to kind of be immune to all the challenges that we face. You know, sometimes they accuse, not accuse, they people kind of put forward this point that those who have faith, and especially faithful in terms of the belief in God, they have they kind of you know, sometimes when you are feeling a lot of pain, then you take a painkiller. Basically, it kind of cuts you off from the pain. This drug, it's a pharmaceutical drug. It's which we call as medicine. Anyways, in pharmacy, it's called a drug. Drug basically means a chemical that is used to alleviate the pain or alleviate any disease that a human goes through, or animals or birds go through, because they also, there's animal medicine, bird medicine too. So so we kind of have this approach as faithful people, those who believe in God, especially for us Vaishnavas too. You know, like we always trust Krishna, we always trust Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and trust God's plan. And there are others may or may not subscribe to this faith. However, everyone needs to have um, this defense mechanism. There has to be some kind of faith that one expresses, which is kind of our defense mechanism, which helps us be resilient, which helps us stand up to the challenges that we face. Now, should we depend on factors that are temporary, or should we depend on a factor that exists eternally? Either ways, there is faith. There are, in fact, if we depend on, let's say, our own abilities, then these abilities that we speak of, especially in terms of being resilient to pain, resilient to challenges in life. I mean, money or physical strength or power. And let's not speak of power. Let's speak of something more tangible like physical strength, money, property. These are very limited in boosting our faith, because we know that how money can money has limits, or physical strength has limits, or any kind of physical shelter has limits. However, belief in oneself, if one has that kind of belief in oneself, or belief in the people that we trust, that belief has its kshetra, its territory, its boundaries are much more wider or much more bigger than the boundaries of faith in physical things like money or physical strength, etc. So if we trust that our friends and relatives stand with us, that kind of trust, that kind of faith has bigger boundaries. It gives us a bigger area of comfort zone. So these are also, although it seems they are tangible, because it seems we know our friends, we know our well-wishers, actually we do not know them all that well. So here are putting our feet in the territory of the unknown. Now, if one thinks logically, then this is what we are doing. We are trusting another person that we know something of, and we are unaware of a lot of things about that person. It could be an identical twin too. But the way the mind functions is unfathomable for oneself, our own mind, what to speak of trying to fathom or know the extent of another person's mental capacities. Many of you are married, you have families. You know how difficult, or you know how limited you are in even knowing the thought processes of another family member, someone who's very close to you. So when you put your trust in someone, in another person other than yourself, now we are walking into the realm of faith or trust, in the realm of the unknown. So those who have faith in God, they are also doing, they are also following a similar process. Unfortunately, because it seems that God, those who challenge the existence of God, those who challenge the existence of Krishna being God, they feel that God should be reduced to aspects of, can I see him or her? Can I interact with him or her with our physical senses? So that is, I think, that is unjust on our part if we try to do that. Trying to put God in a separate category, like his existence has to be proven to be accepted, to be acceptable, and putting him in that kind of box and letting everyone else go scot-free. Like, yeah, I can trust somebody across this continent because I've heard that person is a human. I see that person on Facebook. I see that person on has a WhatsApp profile. So relating to God in a way that God needs to be proven to be existent is not fair. Is not fair. If we want to deal fairly with the existence of God, if we not want to deal justly with the existence of God, then we have to use the same parameters that we use for the existence of any other person. If I shut my eyes, close my eyes, and refuse to hear another person's sound, and also refuse to open my eyes and accept their existence, then I am choosing to stay in ignorance of the existence of that person. And by that choice, I'm actually being unjust. I'm not being fair with the existence of the other person. So it is not that this is simply a devotional drug or a drug of faith that the people of faith take, and they say that plan is much more beautiful. It's not that. The acceptance of God's plan being much more beautiful than all of our desires combinedly put together is based on logic. It is based on how humans have transactions in this world. Yes, God's plan is very beautiful. However, we will be always limited by our own desires in understanding God's plan, which is another existent truth of life. For example, let's say there is a farmer. Let's say there is a householder. We'll kind of use these two examples parallelly. Let's say there's a farmer. Let's say there's a householder, a person who is working in the corporate sector, 9-to-5 job, has a family, has a house, etc., etc., etc. And there's a farmer that works in the fields whenever the weather allows the farmer to work. So two people working out there. One is a little more dependent on it outwardly. One is a little more dependent on the forces of material nature. And in today's times, we can understand that everyone is dependent on, or everyone kind of is affected by the forces of material nature. You know, there are talks about how there could be a new work culture. Yes, yesterday I was reading an article which states that many of the it seems that many of the corporates in the sector in India are working towards making this work from home an acceptable norm. They have kind of put proposals to the government to change certain laws at the workplace. Can be allowed working from home. So we see that material nature is forcing an entire planet, especially the human society, to conform, to change their approach to certain types of lifestyles that we've had. So farmer typically does not need a pandemic to do that. A farmer can see that forces of material nature are quite powerful. A farmer can relate to that much more than a person that works in the corporate field, in the corporate world. And the reason being, a person in the corporate world works out of a 10 by 10 structure cubicle or something like that. So for such a person, water comes in bottles and milk comes from the dairy farm. For such a person, it's like, yeah, the dairy farm was shut, so I did not get my milk. Or the essential, our essential needs have slowed down, and therefore I did not get my bottle of mineral water. For them, the idea that water comes from resources like streams or rivers is very remote, very, very remote. And the idea that milk comes from living beings like cows and other milk providing or milk giving entities is quite remote. So that is why the forces of material nature seem to be not within directly affecting the comfort zone of somebody who works in the corporate world, except for situations like this pandemic. So in the case of a farmer, in the case of, let's say, a person, a householder who's working in the city, their understanding of how God is merciful is just limited to their world of family, work. In the case of the farmer, it is limited to his or her field, farm. Their idea of how God is beautiful. And this is one of the truths that we kind of live with. It is one of those truths in this material world. Can a person really expand one's mind that God's will is understood in terms of the entire human society? Well, on a day-to-day basis, it is understood in terms of where I am, like my house, my workplace, my farm, my field. And when we are limited by these desires, or when we are limited by these boundaries that we have created, our faith in God is affected, or let's say it's boosted whenever things go well for our family, things go well at our workplace. Let's take it to the community level. Things go well for our community. But even that is not as tangible. You know, people say, yeah, community welfare work, but basically it means that it is limited to one section of society, of that city, or of that community. The farmer, good rains, groundwater level is good, the crop is good. So the farmer sees that this is God's plan. But God's plan is bigger than that. I mean, a poet can think of that if the poet is kind of thinking of how to write poetry about nature or on nature. A writer can maybe sit down and pen down an article and forget about it, but in the time that the writer is engaged with that article on nature, then can see the work of the Lord. Why? Because a farmer feels that God has been kind by providing rains. Providing rains to whom? To his farm or her farm. That has been settled, then maybe the farmer would feel happy that rains have also been provided to the neighboring farms. Let's suppose the neighboring city did not have rains, but once the neighboring village did not receive rains somehow or the other, it's across the mountains. But the city in which, or the village in which the farmer lives, received rains. Still, the farmer would feel that God's plan is always beautiful. We try to conform the idea of the universality of God, or God's or Krishna's universal presence according to the limited world of desire that we have. Now, if that limited world of desire is in alignment with what is called as scriptures, then we become a part of a bigger scheme, a bigger mechanism. So, can someone have the of a feeling for the entire world? Yes, but practically speaking, maybe it is a difficult proposition. Maybe it is a very difficult proposition. Hence, the great seers, thinkers who have read the scriptures, scriptures that have come since time immemorial, that have sustained the ravages of time. They haven't changed over a period of time. They have stayed as they are, or as it is. Scripture has stayed as it is. Such scriptural injunctions, they help us align our world of desires with the bigger plan that the Lord has instituted in this universe. So basically, it is what we are trying to conclude is that it is all right not to be able to fathom the entirety of God's plan. But at least try to understand, and in the association of people that have the right understanding of scriptures. When we say right understanding of scriptures, that means there is a teacher-student succession, teacher-student disciplic succession, guru-sishya, guru-disciple succession. You know, there's been a good teacher, passes on the message to the students. There are many loyal students who are also intelligent, they pass it on, and this way tradition goes on. And there is always good along with the bad, so we can always be hopeful that the good message would get passed on generation after generation by good students. That will always exist. So if we are able to align our world of desires with what has been explained in the scriptures and what has been shown through the lives of great personalities who live the instructions of the scriptures, who live by the instructions of the scriptures, then our world of desires would technically be called as clean. Rather than try and become God by understanding the entirety of God's plan, which is impossible, rather than do that, what is possible for us is you purify our limited world of desires by aligning it with the instructions of the scriptures. So today I wanted to kind of introduce the topic of the cleansing of the Gundicha temple, to this idea of why and how it is important for us to purify our own existence, especially the world of desires that we live in. When I say the world of desires, it does not mean material desires. It means the world that we understand, that the mind can relate to, the people that we trust, the community that we trust, the community that we put our faith in, the people that we put our faith in, because these are, all of this is the world of the unknown. In the sense, we know them, but we really do not know all of their thoughts. Not all of them. It's not possible to know all of the thoughts of all the people all the time. So purify that world of existence. And in a very terms, that is called purifying one's heart. So it's important to be able to do that. So we did discuss last week. First, we studied the philosophy that has been explained by Srila Prabhupada in his purports to Madhya Leela, the chapter entitled "The Cleaning of the Gundi." And we also saw that Srila Prabhupada is quoting from Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj, his own spiritual master. And we discussed about how Lord Chaitanya had requested Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who was the chief advisor on religious matters to the king of Jagannath Puri. He was a Raja Purohit, and also matters of state, whenever the king needed inputs from the Dharma Shastras or inputs from the scriptures on matters of state, then his person to go for was Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, a very renowned, sober gentleman of great scholarly aptitudes and very sincere a practitioner of the Vedas. And after he met Lord Chaitanya, he also exhibited strong devotional sentiments. Lord Chaitanya expressed that he was an incarnation of he was a portion of the teacher of the demigods born or reborn. The teacher of the demigods is Brihaspati. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was an incarnation of Brihaspati. He had the potency of the Deva Guru, the teacher of the demigods, Brihaspati. And then we have Tulasi, who had also come along with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya ji, who is the superintendent of the temple called as a Padicha. And there was also Kashi Mishra, who had offered a room, who had donated a very beautiful room that was private and clean to Lord Chaitanya as his residence. And Kashi Mishra also was the supervisor who looked over the affairs of the temple activities at the temple of Lord Jagannath. So Lord Gauranga, he requested all of them, he called all of them on the full moon night of the month of Ashad, Amavasya day, in the evening, and he requested them to give him and his devotees permission to clean the Gundicha temple, and they got the permission. And the Padisha, Tulasi, he also made arrangements for hundreds of brooms and water pots to be made available, like hundreds of them, 200 to 400 water pots. It says hundreds in Bengali, but you know, since many generations, Bengal is in India, and for many generations, Indians as a society, we are very, most of us over generations, we are very generous with our time. So like if it is going to take us 1 hour to do a job and somebody asks us, we'll tell them just 2 minutes. It will be ready very soon. 2 minutes, 2 to 5 minutes. So we are always very positive. We always try to give encouragement to people. I'm trying to be a little sarcastic here. So this is colloquial language. You know, when you say, like in Hindi, if you say do char minute, you know, or in Tamil you say something else. It's there in all the regional aspects of India, of the Indian diaspora. It's like 2 to 4 minutes, which basically mean it could take a day to 10 days, or it will be ready very soon. And you ask if it is in terms of days, it's like 2 to 4 days, which could mean maybe up to a fortnight too. Basically, this is because as a society, I guess, we were more putting in our efforts than having deadlines, I guess. Both are helpful. Deadlines are helpful, at the same time. Little room for having a little room for in your time frame is also very helpful. So anyway, so what was mentioned was hundreds of water pot and hundreds of brooms. And now translated into English, then we become very particular, like, okay, 100. Because later on in the description, we'll read that there were hundreds of devotees and they were all carrying water pots. And you're wondering that if there is only 100 water pots, then how are hundreds of devotees carrying water pots? Somebody, 2 or 3 people asked me that question. They were from the West. And I had to explain to them that this is the understanding. So don't get caught up by certain numbers. There were a large number of water pots and a large number of brooms that were brought in. Lord Gauranga, he traveled all the way across the town. Like Gundicha is kind of on the other side of the town of Puri, like about 2 miles away. So, typically a small village town would be like 2 to 4 miles across. There's no need to have skyscrapers and apartments and things like that. Spaces, there's sufficient space. Space was available, so people distributed them and amongst or communities distributed them amongst small villages. So anyways, traveled all the way across to Gundicha. He walked along with his devotees and they started cleaning the temple, the Gundicha temple. And they started off, and it's a big temple complex. In today's times, some of our ISKCON temples are big. But when we, the Gundicha temple, if you go and see the Gundicha temple or the temple of Lord Jagannath, there are so many gates and so many doors opening into so many courtyards, and there are so many different levels. You walk upstairs and you come to a different level of the temple. It's like very intricate and very, very big. If the whole temple complex could be spread out across at the ground level, then it would occupy a huge space. Really, like so many hectares of land would be occupied by that. So the Gundicha temple has many structures, and there is a huge courtyard, and there is an outer wall. It's like a palatial place. The governor or the temple presidents in the United States or in Canada, they have their residence and they have their grounds. Or in the UK, the Queen has her palace and the grounds. So Lord Jagannath, he is the Lord of the universe. So um, he stays in Jagannath Puri. So he has this huge place to himself. So Gundicha is huge. And hundreds of devotees coming together and trying to clean that place still would take hours. Even if they did it with utmost sincerity, it would take hours. And that is what happened. It took the devotees hours and hours to clean the temple. They started off early morning and it was late afternoon by the time Lord Chaitanya was satisfied and he said, all right. So how did Lord Chaitanya encourage his devotees? He did it through his personal example, through his instructions, through interacting with devotees and appreciating their work, one-to-one interaction with many devotees, one-on-one, like he would walk up to a devotee, encourage that devotee or help that devotee or offer advice to that person who was cleaning the temple. So at the same time, encouraging many of his followers to do the same thing. Like Sarup Damodar Goswami, at one point of time, there is an incident where he called up Sarup Damodar Goswami and asked him to pay attention to a particular detail. So he personally was cleaning the temple complex, and he encouraged other devotees through his words, through his interactions, and sometimes he was very competitive too. He would call out to the devotees in a loud voice, and he would say that everyone who gathers up all the dirt, the dry dirt, like the grains of sand, mud particles, straw, dry leaves, or anything that is broken and falling apart, like the plaster from the walls or the floor cracking up and dirt being in the cracks. So anyone who'd gather up those who would collect this dry trash, this dry dirt, and put it in a pile outside, then Lord Chaitanya kind of made it little competitive. He said that the one who gathers the biggest pile or the largest pile of dirt, I would know that that person is working very sincerely. On the other hand, those who are having smaller piles, I would understand that they are a bit lazy. And then sometimes he would come up to people who were being a little lazy at work, and he would mildly correct them. He would sometimes encourage them. Sometimes he would, if there was a need of being sarcastic, he would be sarcastic too. He would try, depending on the situation, he would try to encourage the devotees to put in 100%, to give their 100% at cleaning the temple complex. So the devotees are very much motivated. Huge piles of dirt started showing up, outside the temple, far away from the temple. There was a designated place where you could, it was the dump, where you could dump all of that dirt. And when the devotees were around at Lord Chaitanya's pile, they would always see that his pile was the largest, it was the biggest. And that would give them more encouragement to do more. And on another occasion, Lord Chaitanya, he said that those devotees whose piles are smaller, the dirt pile, they would have to buy sweetmeats. They would have to buy sweets, sweet preparations from the market and feed the rest of the devotees. So this could be motivational for many people because they have to spend their money. And people like to not spend their money unnecessarily, especially for others' benefit. And there is that feature to everyone. So Lord Chaitanya, he knew how to motivate people in this world. He was worldly wise too. Just because he's God doesn't mean that God is not worldly wise. And if God is worldly wise, does not mean that that God is a worldly person. I mean, such kind of conclusions are really uh, inaccurate. So he would encourage so many people. And then they would take the dirt far away from the temple complex to dump. The place where this dirt had to be dumped was distance away, and people had to walk. They had to pick up the dirt. Lord Chaitanya would personally pick up that all the dirt that he would broom up, and he would kind of make a pile. He would pick it up in his outer cloth. He had this upper cloth, his uttariya, and he would pick it up in that. You know, they did not have, not all of them had pans in which they could pick up the dirt. They used whatever was available. So people would do that. They would use their towel or the upper cloth or their dhotis, pick up the dirt in that and carry it some distance away. And every time they had to do that. And Krishna Das Kaviraj and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj explains in the purport that when you put dry dirt in a different place, in the place where it has to be dumped, the garbage dump, when you put that dry dirt there, and it is not an enclosed space, then the wind can bring back all that dirt to the place that you're trying to keep clean. And the wind moves around at its own desire. So if you put the dirt, if the garbage dump is not an enclosed space, and typically 500 years ago, it was difficult to have something like that. So it was open space. So you had to dump it in a place that was so far away that the wind would not be able to carry it back into the temple complex. So that was additional work for people to do. Since we are talking about cleaning the heart, if we take away all this dirt from our heart, which is called the antahakaran, it is not the organic heart. It is not this organ that has the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava coming in there, and the aorta and 4 chambers. No, not that heart. That is the organic heart. We are speaking of the heart as the seat of all desires. So if there is a seat, if there is a seating place on which all the desires are put, then that is the allegorical heart that scriptures speak about. Now, it could be in the same place as the organic heart. There's no restrictions on it being in the same place, in the same territory as the organic heart. It can be there, no problem. So anyways, that is the heart that we are trying to clean. You know, we are not trying to just clean up our blood so that our blood is clean, you know, take some blood cleaning agents, some herbs, or no. That is needed for physical health, and definitely one should try and detoxify ourselves regularly. It is very healthy practice. The cleaning of the heart also has to do with cleaning up the seat of our desires, the place where our desires sit or stay. That place has to be clean, and sometimes it needs deep cleaning. We need to trash away things that we have accumulated over so many days and weeks and months, and time passed. We need to just take it and trash it, send it away in the trash cans, cleaning the heart. So anything that is unnecessary, that is irritable, that is toxic, has to be cleaned away. And how should we do that? We should try and send away all those unwanted things from the heart. Send it so far away that we would not even receive a whiff of it or get a sniff of it. When the winds of desires blow around us, the winds of time blow around us, they do not bring back the same material heart. So try to send away that trash, all this material trash, to a very distant place. And what is a distant place where we could try and send it? To the place of forgetfulness. To that realm of our existence where once gone, one never remembers it. It's very healthy. Put it, we forget so many things. Sometimes we forget things forever. Now, we may not do it consciously. However, we do subscribe to the unconscious removal, or we subscribe to the unconscious way of forgetting things unconsciously. Sometimes we can do it consciously too. There could be a need to do it consciously too. Like a troubling relationship, you have to consciously try and forget. Once it is done with, once there is some separation, one has to consciously forget. So one has to remove all the things that make us remember a situation which was not healthy for us. So sometimes we can, there are situations where we do it in a conscious manner too. This is a situation where we have to do it very consciously. How do we do that? We send all of these desires, if we are cleaning our heart. So we have to collect our pile of dirt and send it to a far, far, far away place of no return, which is called as the place of forgetfulness. We forget that we ever needed or desired to have such material, position, or objects in our lives. Completely forget to do that. Which needs training, which needs us to readjust the way our mind functions. So Lord Chaitanya, he showed us through his example. So he along with the devotees would take all the dirt to a faraway dump and trash it there. What are some of those things that are unwanted in the heart? They are related to basic material desires of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. They're related to karma, gyan, and mystic perfections. So we kind of discussed all of that. I'm just trying to, again, recapitulate that, what we've discussed. Lord Chaitanya was cleaning the temple. He did it a second time, just that dry, that dry cleanup. Again, brooming everything and collecting all the dirt. He did it a second time too. There was a second effort put at cleaning. And during the second effort, the finer grains of sand and anything that had remained back in the cracks or in the corners or some places that had been overlooked, even those places were very meticulously cleaned out. Yes. So the second cleansing is also very metaphorical in terms of philosophy. Chaitanya personally did it, so it is not a metaphor. It is not a story, allegorical story. It is a real-time event. He did that. In terms of philosophy, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that this second cleansing is also very important. It shows that one has to be careful that the finer sentiments of material desires do not find some hiding places within our heart, within our existence. And when we are addressing these finer grains of sand, when we are addressing these subtle tendencies, it basically means that there's deeper attachments to these tendencies. So what are some of these subtle tendencies that we are very much attached to? What are these finer grains of sand that constantly trouble one, but we do not realize that we are being troubled? That constantly keeps one awake at night, that keeps us distrustful of the existence around us, that always keeps us on the fight or flight mode, very anxious, very much under pressure. What are some of those subtle impurities? When we speak of subtle impurities, it also means that the contamination because of subtle impurities is much more deeper. The roots that these impurities have taken within our heart are much, much more deep. Which means we'll have to put in more, we'll have to put in more energy if we want to uproot them. And that is why second cleaning means that you have to now use your reserve strength, because the first cleaning was done with a lot of enthusiasm and you use a lot of physical prowess, worked hard. Now to do it all over again brings in a situation where you could be doubtful. Why do we need to clean it again? It's done well. Because you're tired. Physically, you're tired. Mentally, you're exhausted. So a deeper cleaning, a second time cleaning needs more of mental strength to be as motivated, to be as enthusiastic, or even more. A second time cleaning. For those of us who have done that, when we try to do second cleansing in our houses, we know how easy it is to be a little negligent, to be a little inattentive. That is what happens with these subtle contaminations. Inattentiveness, some kind of laziness, a deep sense of attachment prevents us from addressing these smaller, these finer impurities in the heart. And Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he quotes from another place in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, but he says that there are a few of these finer sentiments. The first one that he points out is when translated, it is translated in the English as fault finding, but it is the Sanskrit is kutinati. Kutinati, kuti, it comes from, sometimes how Chanakya is called as Kautilya. One of his names is Kautilya. Basically, it means that very sharp-witted, very clever, very intelligent. It could also mean very cunning. So kuti means cunning, and kuti nati means very crooked. Cunningness, which is very crooked. So crooked cunningness. Little translations sometimes are very funny. Crooked cunningness. So one is very cunning and one is crooked too. when we say crooked, this is the old English. A crooked person means someone that cannot be trusted at all. So kuti nati is those sentiments that we have where we use so many ways, especially diplomacy, especially gossip, spreading rumors, talking ill of others. We use all of these mediums to try and secure our own status or position. So a simple term for it would be fault finding, but it's not as simple. So kuti nati, it is just that united we are strong, but with others divided I am stronger and they are weak. Like that. That is the philosophy. With others divided, I become stronger and they become weak. So fault finding, kuti nati. Subtle desires. For example, what are these subtle desires? It could happen that one starts off an activity with a good heart. And when one gets involved with that activity, one develops ulterior motives. That is the subtle, that is the impurity in the heart. So kuti nati does not mean that one is essentially a fault finder, but one gets involved in a particular situation and then being influenced by the situation, one starts gossiping, one starts rumor mongering, one starts one creates a situation where one tries to divide everyone against everyone else just to be the one and only sole leader. Sometimes one does it very consciously. Many a times one just finds oneself in a situation where one becomes susceptible to the resources that are available in that situation. This happens with all the subtle impurities, one of which is kuti nati. The second one is pratisthasa or pratishtha, the desire for name, fame, and position. And typically, that would mean somebody who uses kuti nati. Here it means being duplicitous. Who is duplicitous or uses the situation to become duplicitous and project what one is not, just because one wants to be favored, just because one wants to be in power and control, or just because one needs everyone to appreciate them. So pratisthasa, the desire for name and fame and for high position. Then another is jiva hinsa, envy of other living entities. This could be a standalone impurity, or it could be a combined package. Why is there envy of other living entities? Just because we have the facility to hate someone, we kind of use that facility. That is how dangerous the material world is. There is love and there is hate. It is a world of opposites. In the spiritual world, there are no opposites. And if there are seemingly opposing situations, they are just to uphold the eternal truth. Like if there is day and night in the spiritual world, like Krishna's at night has pastimes, during the day has pastimes in the spiritual world. So all these pastimes are meant to unite people to be Krishna conscious. But in the material world, it is not meant to unite people. And therefore, in the material world, day and night, the opposites exist in terms of dividing everyone and keeping everyone in illusion. So there is the opportunity to hate someone. So why not hate? And there would be ample reasons. So a devotee is adveshtas. Devotee is supposed to be somebody who does not envy anyone else. Reason for that is because a devotee never feels that one's enemy, one has an enemy that was born. Ajata Shatra. A person for whom an enemy was never born. Anyone who was born is a friend to that person. That is how a person looks at the world. It will be very difficult to practice this in the material world, but it is very normal to feel like that in the spiritual world. So envy of other living entities. And this envy that people express, it has various forms, but all of those forms have an underlying principle. And the underlying principle is unconsciously, we want to prevent others from progressing in the Krishna. For that, we may spread rumors about them. For that, we may try to, gain a position higher than them. The underlying principle is unconsciously, we do not want anyone to progress in their Krishna consciousness. Then we become envious of them. So Jiva Hinsa means trying to prevent another person's growth in Krishna consciousness. Then Nishiddhachar. Nishiddhachar means accepting things forbidden in the scriptures. And to be able to do that, either we have to propagate incorrect philosophy. We come up with our own philosophy, or we come up with twisted philosophy, misinterpretation of the scriptures, or we do it away from the public eye. It is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, two different persons are functioning differently at different times. And this is because of the allurements in the heart. We still feel the need to find material gratification here in this material world. Very subtle. The form of Nishiddhachar. It is a subtle impurity. Then there is Kama, wanting material gain. Like, I want to have 3 more rasgullas than anyone else. So for that, what do I have to do? Nishiddhachar. Those 3 away from public eye, and later on sit alone and eat them. I'm giving a very simple example. I don't want to offend anyone. But Nishiddhachar, there is Nishiddhachar. Why? Or use position separate from me and keep 3 extra for me. So desire for material gain, very subtle. And there is puja, or hankering for popularity. So pratishtha is name, fame, and position. So there is position also, status also, power also. Whereas puja is the desire that people worship one. So hankering for popularity. Like, how many friends do I have on Facebook or Instagram? That is like puja. So these are the subtle impurities. So sometimes the second cleansing is compared to this purifying the heart of the subtle contamination. Sometimes devotees do that. So they kind of describe the first cleansing as purifying the heart of gross contaminations, and sometimes they call it purifying the heart of subtle contaminations. Whichever way you want to remember it, important is that we realize that these are impurities in the heart. Then there was, I think I described this too, that Lord Chaitanya, then he asked everyone to bring in the water pots. And everyone, they made a huge line from the water source, the reservoir of water there. Typically, if you go to Jagannath Puri today, they will say that it is the Indradumna Sarovar, because that was close enough. That is close by. They formed this human chain, and hand to hand, the pots were being transported, and other pots, empty pots, were being sent back. And when that proved to be a little slow, then they found another a well close to the temple complex, and people are drawing water from the well. Meanwhile, as they were doing this, passing on the water pots and collecting the water pots, they needed to communicate, and the only means of communication were words like Hari, Hari, or Krishna, Krishna. Sometimes the pots would clash with each other and break, and that would be a funny moment. But no one got caught up in that. They would continue. Then Lord Chaitanya, he cleaned the ceilings, the walls, the seating place of Lord Jagannath, the Bhoga Mandir, the place of offering, the Kirtan Mandap, place where they do some Kirtan, the Jagamohan. They can come and take darshan and pass by. The outer courtyard, the inner courtyard, and finally when all the water was let out, it seemed that new streams had formed, new rivers had formed, which were running to meet the ocean. And this cleaning is compared to like making your mind, your heart, your mind very cool. When Lord Chaitanya polished the walls and the ceilings with his own cloth, showing the sincerity of a person, they want to remove any stains, any fine stain of a material desire that may be there on the heart. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that it is like shining marble. When one tries to shine marble with cloth, then the marble becomes very, very brilliant, shines brilliantly, and it is also very cooling. To have the mind have a cool effect, which basically means that one is no longer burning from material desires. The mind is peaceful, the mind is calm, the mind is cool. So Lord Chaitanya did that. And finally, when everything was clean, Lord Chaitanya started Kirtan. And after all that hard work, Lord Chaitanya started dancing. The devotees couldn't hold back. They were simply mesmerized. They were pulled in. They started dancing and chanting. Their bodies were completely tired. They were practically falling down. But they couldn't stop because Lord Chaitanya was dancing. And Lord Chaitanya saw the situation. Lord Chaitanya stopped the Sankirtan. He sat down. And the devotees had to leave. And then Lord Chaitanya went to take his bath. He put on fresh clothes. Devotees also took their bath. They put on fresh clothes. And they sat down and they had prasad. So finally, when the mind and the heart are clean and the mind is peaceful, the heart is feeling cool now, feeling there's no longer any burning desires within the heart, material desires within the heart. Then what does one do with such a clean heart? chants the holy names of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Hare
Hare Hare,
Hare,
Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. One does Sankirtan and one eats Krishna Prasad, one honors Krishna Prasad in the association of devotees. In other words, when we are done with the process of cleaning and we give up this material body, then we enter the realm of eternal kirtan and regular prasad, honoring of prasad. And it's fun. It's beautiful. So this is a synopsis of the philosophical understanding of the Gundicha Marjanam, and also a brief understanding of the pastime that is described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And I am very late. It is 12:19 at your place. So I'm so very sorry. And we'll stop here and we'll try to take in any questions if there are any.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you very much for a wonderful class. And we're so grateful that, we have two doctors. One is you completed MBBS degree, and we had Jagannath Mishra Prabhu also on the call. So to take care of, physical as well as spiritual problems that we have. And case in point is your wonderful class today. We also have Mother Dwaraka, who's associated with this field of medicine as well. So we're grateful for the wonderful class, Prabhu. Second class, and you summarized beautifully what you covered in the first class as well. So we are very thankful for the same. And Prabhu, there are a few questions, but we just want to be sensitive to the time. We will dedicate another 10 more minutes. We'll have another 10 more minutes and we'll wrap it up by 12:30, if it's okay, Prabhu.
Perfectly fine with me.
So I'm just going to summarize some of the questions that came through the private chat, and some of them have posted through the normal chat as well. So one is, Prabhu, you mentioned very beautifully about the second cleaning, which is important as well, the first cleaning and the second cleaning. Now, even if it's a brand new palace, you mentioned about the Queen's Palace. Even if it's a brand new palace, at some point it will get dirty, right? The dust will get accumulated at some point, so it needs some cleaning. But is there something that the process that we can follow to prevent the dust from coming? One is cleaning it. We got to do that on a regular basis. What is that we can do to prevent the dust, at least majority of the dust from coming in?
Okay, so thank you very much. So the question is there a way that we can prevent the dust from coming into our heart, the dirt? Yes, there is a way. The way is to go back home, back to Godhead. Material world is a place where there is danger at every step. And we should not feel fearful by hearing this. At the same time, this is just meant for us to be aware of this place, which is like a landmine. It is a place that has so many challenges waiting for us. Specifically, the four pillars of the challenges in this material world is birth, death, old age, and disease. So, sober person, realizing the nature of material existence, understands how important it is to be Krishna conscious. Understand how important it is to make this particular human form of life work and reach the goal or the perfection of human form of life. This very lifetime, whenever whatever is destined, whatever time frame, we should be able to remember Krishna and depart from this world. And remembering him with deep conviction and deep attachment, and without any fear, without any fruitive intent that, oh, Krishna, please now just bring me to your lotus feet. Without feeling that kind of detachment. That is necessary. What I want to say is that attachment to Krishna would naturally imply detachment. So we do not have to express, we should be in a situation where we do not need to express detachment to this material world. We need to be in a place where we can express complete attachment to Krishna. So otherwise, we may need another birth where we can develop that kind of dependence on Krishna. So, to be completely Krishna conscious. Now, the acharyas are very merciful. The gurus, our acharya parampara is very merciful. They always are looking out for us. So there is always help available for us. Like even if we fall short, then they kind of work overtime to help us, to pull us up. However, we should try and put in our full efforts. So Prabhupada, once someone asked him that, what should we be thinking about when we chant Hare Krishna? I'm just paraphrasing this, the exact pastime. It's been a long time since I read it. So Prabhupada kind of said, what Srila Prabhupada said was, you chant with your tongue, you hear with your ears. That is it. Focus your mind on chanting or properly pronouncing the holy names, and focus your mind on hearing those holy names. And that is an art. Sometimes when there is a particular object in this material world, when you pronounce the word that describes that object, and when you hear yourself saying it, your mind is totally focused on it. There are so many examples that can come to our mind. So our mind is capable of doing that. Now we have to find a way how we can become attached to Krishna. The acharyas say that, or the scriptures say that to become attached to Krishna, we must have a devotional lifestyle. We must practice a devotional lifestyle, and we must chant regularly a fixed number of names of the Supreme Lord, especially Lord Krishna. So in our parampara, we chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Specifically in ISKCON, we try to chant at least 16 rounds. Kirtan Sadahari is the goal. So at one point of time, when we are done with all our material responsibilities, and material nature is kind of giving us signals, our ears kind of ring and tell us that, hey, we are not working as good as before. Our stomach tells us that, hey, I'm not able to digest as good as before. You're no longer young. The body gives those kind of signs, which basically means retire, which basically means take up to more of preaching activities or more of scriptures or chanting of the holy names of Krishna. So a plan during our childhood, and a plan for our old age, and finally at the moment of death, to remember Krishna with complete attachment and dependence on Krishna. Rakshishyatiti Vishwas, so knowing very well that Krishna will protect us. So not feeling any danger from this material world anymore. So if we are not feeling the danger of the material world because we are so dependent on Krishna, it is like the flood waters are just flowing 1 feet below us, but we are on a ledge that is secure. Then we don't feel fear of the flood waters flowing under us. So that is why attachment to Krishna is so very important. To find that ledge, and the practice of Krishna consciousness helps us. The scriptures tell us, and our spiritual teachers, they tell us that this will work, this process works. So we need to make it work.
Okay, Prabhu.
Sincerity and our enthusiasm, we need to make it work.
Wonderful, Prabhu. So we have a couple of more minutes. So I'm just going to summarize some of the questions that had come. Basically, it's in the context of fault finding and name, fame, position, and envy, material gain, etc., etc., want to get worshipped, etc. So these are when desires are like this, then obviously there are Vaishnava aparadhas that are committed. So you had mentioned about very nicely about this cleaning of the temple of the heart, and we know what are the dust or the dirt based on your nice explanation, fault finding, name, fame, etc., etc. Now, so we know that it needs to be cleaned, and we know what needs to be cleaned, and the frequency is more often, as you explained. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did it the second time as well. Now the question is, practically, for those of us who are hearing, how do you clean this? Is this by chanting? You meditate on these subtle things being there, or we realize that we have made mistakes, and then we how do we actually get rid of that? What is the process? Is it
Something I read like a couple of years ago. It's deep. Maybe it's a little funny too. First grade class, the teacher gives everyone a sheet of paper, A4 size paper, and says, you can draw you can draw whatever comes to your mind, something that you'd like to express, anything that is very dear to you. There are so many things that children are drawing, and she's like walking down the classroom, looking at what the children are doing, and she notices a girl drawing a portrait of someone. So she asks the girl that, who is it? And the girl says, oh, I'm drawing a picture of God. And the teacher is a little bemused. She is a good teacher, but she kind of is dealing with a child. So she asks the child in a seemingly childish way, like, no one has seen God, child. And the child says, well, wait for 10 more minutes and everyone shall see who is God. The idea is that once she is done with the portrait, then there is God. People can see who's God. That is the child's faith. Another example related to how to overcome these challenges. What is the process? A village had been facing drought for 2 to 3 years. So they decide to offer, the head priest or the religious leader that they look up to says that everyone should congregate in the temple, and we are going to do a yagya, do a sacrifice, or do the Nam Sankirtan sacrifice, and after the sacrifice, rains will come. So everyone walks into the temple, and the teacher, the spiritual teacher, looks out into the congregation and says, none of you have any faith in God or in the process that we are about to undertake. And everyone is shocked, like, we are here, aren't we? And he says, well, you did not bring in your umbrellas. If you're sure that there would be rains, then you would bring in your umbrella. So if we want to have a process of cleaning the heart, of cleaning, of purification, then there has to be the proper faith. Faith in God and scriptures which present God, and teachers that help us understand God and how the scriptures explain God. And in the association of such like-minded people who are focused, helps us practice the process of purification. And for us in Krishna consciousness, it's what needs to be done falls into two categories: that which needs to be done and that which needs to be avoided. So what is that we need to avoid? We need to avoid the four pillars of irreligion. So no meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, no gambling. And the more frugal we are, wherever it is needed to avoid these 4 pillars of religion, in whatever situations, if in any situation you feel that one of these principles can be compromised, even if it has not been explicitly been mentioned, if implicitly any one person feels that this could be these principles are existence in any activity, avoid it. That's a simple rule. Even if the others are doing it, if I am uncomfortable that maybe one of these 4 principles of religion is present here, be confident and avoid that situation. Just be confident and avoid that situation.
Wonderful, Prabhu.
Secondly, the do. The do is chant Hare Krishna regularly on the beats with focus and attention. Try to make it an exclusive activity. Try to avoid making it an inclusive activity. Like trying to do it with other things or other agendas in the mind. Try to exclusive activity. The more we make it an exclusive activity, the easier it is for us to chant the holy names properly. Then the second thing that we have to do is regularly read the scriptures and bathe our consciousness in the instruction of the scriptures. Try to always refer to the original quotations of the scriptures. Translations are helpful, and obviously language barriers, we may kind of find it easier to read the translation of the scriptures in our own languages. Hopefully some of us may be able to relate to the original text in Sanskrit. The reason is even amongst even in languages, sometimes the subtlety is lost in translation or may not be so easily understood in translation. Let us try to make the Sanskrit language again a living language before it becomes a dead language. So translations are very helpful. Go ahead with the translated version, especially because it is an authorized version. In our parampara, we follow the translations given by Srila Prabhupada. That is the first line of acceptance of scriptural injunctions. Srila Prabhupada's translation. So read the scriptures. And if possible, go to the original texts. Whenever you are 2 years down the line, 10 years down the line, towards the end of life, it's always very helpful. Third is try to eat food that has been offered to God. It is very practical and powerful process. Make the offerings in good consciousness, and accept those offerings as remnants of the Lord or prasad. And as already mentioned, keep the association of good people. So, or like-minded people, basically. Like-minded people means, you see, everyone in, let me explain through an example. Everyone who's at school are like-minded people. The teachers, the students. Teachers, they kind of help us understand the syllabus. When we say take association of like-minded people, let's say you're in the 10th grade, take association of 10th grade people. For the others, all the other grades, either above you or under you. Those that are above you, whatever, if there is anything related to their syllabus, it is too early for us to understand. And those who are under us, if there is anything related to their services, we can only, what we can do is we can offer them the understanding of it. Association or exchange happens when you associate with like-minded people. So find out what your grade in your existence of Krishna consciousness is, and take quality time exchanging ideas with like-minded people, because the syllabus that we are going through in our grade of Krishna consciousness is better understood when you have study circles or study discussions. All right. So
thank you. That's beautifully explained, Prabhu. So thank you so much. And, we're also grateful to the devotees from Mauritius and Maharashtra, India, who joined us for this week's call as well as last week's call. So we're very grateful. The time difference is big and still you've made it. We are very thankful for the same. And Prabhu, on behalf of all the devotees who joined this session this week and last week, you've given us a fascinating perspective from historical perspective as well, based on what had happened during Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's times. And more importantly, you've given us practical tips on how to clean the temple of our heart. So now it's up to us, and we will, try to clean the temple of our heart, and we need more of your association. So hopefully we will have your association in the next few weeks, again, in these Zoom calls with the devotees. So again, we'd like to thank, on behalf of each one of us, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so very much, Anand Gauranga Prabhu. And is it all right if I let the devotees know that, anyways, because I'm asking it, they'll come to know, that we are also streaming on Facebook page. The same presentation of today's. Last time also we did it. And some of the devotees from Mauritius, I have visited Mauritius a long time ago. So I would like to especially say Hare Krishna to all of them. It's been years since I have connected with them. And thank you once again to all the wonderful devotees at Scarborough and the GTA area. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. All
Hare
Krishna, Prabhu.
Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.
Jai.